Is this? Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay, welcome to your session with Derry Shillito this morning, who will be here talking to you about the role of producer in the industry. So we'll be discussing what it takes to be a producer of short films, music videos, which you guys are doing at the minute, and corporate videos as well. So we'll be breaking down some budget sheets that are from real productions, and we're talking about networking, finding a crew, as well as watching some music videos and short films themselves. So there'll be a chance at the end of today's talk for questions. So while the talk's going on, make sure you're thinking about what you want to ask Derry, and we'll come to you at the end. And we'd love you to share your week with us. You've probably been hearing this all week, but tag Confetti and use the hashtag IW23 this week if you want to take any photos and put them on Instagram or anything like that. And if in the event of a fire alarm, it won't be a test. So keep calm, and the fire exit is back up the ramp where you came, and the collection point will be Brook Street, the corner of Brook Street. So with all the formalities done, let me introduce you to the man himself, Derry Shillito.
Hey, how you all doing? I can't see any of your faces anymore, but I saw when you came in. You all look very buzzing to be here, so hopefully it'll be a bit fun. Like, I'm going to show you some work that I've done. I was a student at Confetti as well 12 years ago, in the same situation you were in. So I'm going to give you tips of how to, if you want to become a producer full-time and get paid like in the industry like I am now, I'll give you as much information as I can over the next 2 hours.
Nice one, man. Cool. So we're going to kick off straight away with a music video that Derry was a producer on. This is a Sleaford Mods music video. So we'll watch this and then have a talk about it afterwards. Good. Okay. So Nottingham royalty, Sleaford Mods. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your role on that music video as producer? What you sort of did with the idea?
Yeah. So who knows Sleaford Mods? Like, yeah. Okay. Got some fans in here. I'm a massive fan. I'm not from Nottingham originally, so when I came here, found out about them. I've followed them ever since I came here 12 years ago. So it was really cool to produce this video. So this was an interesting one. It's directed by Ben Wheatley, who hopefully a lot of you know Ben Wheatley. If you don't, then I recommend watching his films. He's probably, I would say, one of the best British filmmakers currently working. He's got an interesting catalogue, a lot of dark and comic stuff. Kill List is one of them, Sightseers, Happy New Year, Colin Burstead, and High Rise, and a bunch of other stuff. So he's a fan of Sleaford Mods, and he directed that video. So they came up to Nottingham, him and his producer, Andy Stark, who is a producer for Rook Films, who's another production company you should check out. They do a lot of independent British features. So my role on that was basically local Nottingham producer with Luke Radford. So me and him produced that video. So unlike the other videos I'm going to show you, I wasn't in charge of the budget. I wasn't in charge of the creative side of it. That was Ben Wheatley and Andy Stark, and I was in charge of organising all the other logistics. So location, props, crew, everything like that. So that budget, which we'll probably chat about, that was £7,000 for that music video. And I don't know if you think it. I don't know if any of you had like an estimate of how much that might have cost when you were watching it.
Does anyone want to be brave and give it? I can't see it. Put your hand if you had an idea before.
Yeah.
Don't be shy, indeed.
So we're going to talk, because I think it is quite important for people to know how much things cost when you are going out into the industry. Because I think there's a lot of fear about like things costing too much or actually getting access to that amount of money. We are going to refer to the budgets of all of these music videos today. So that was what I did. So I was in charge of location, scheduling, crew, organising lighting, organising all the props. That the whole house that we used was a vacated house, so we had to fill it out. So I was in charge of getting an art designer to do that.
So logistically, what's that like? Is it sort of, where do you go to places for props and stuff like that? Is there a go-to place or?
Yeah, so a few things like there's a few things that you will have to do when you're producing videos. I would say, first of all, you build a network of people who you can trust, who are really good, who are actually better than you at doing things like, art department, things like location scouting, and you befriend them and just make sure that they're there to help you whenever they can. And so this one, I had to basically sort a lot of it out myself, but through doing that, I made contacts. So the house that we filmed in, which is, I think, why the video is a success, because the house has a particular look. It looks manky and old and dank, and that's what he's referencing in the song. Like, he looks out the window, instead of seeing meadows, he sees dying dandelion and bumblebees. So it's like the place is a bit shite, and it's like almost like he's hoping to move out of this area to get to, like, a better life, is what the song's sort of about. So the video is really important. The house is really important. That took a while to sort. It's hard to film in houses, actually. So we contacted Nottingham City Homes and NCHA, Nottingham Community Housing Association, to see if they have any vacated houses which we could pay to film in. And then, if you use a vacated house, you do have to fill it out, which is something that you have to figure out whether that's cost effective or not. So that's what we did for this. It works out okay, I think. And Sleaford Mods have discussed that in great length about how important the house was in, like, interviews and stuff, which is nice to hear.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on that. What you sort of incorporating the lyrics into the house and the location. Did that come from the artist, or was it a sort of a crew idea, the producer idea, or?
Yeah, so that would, in most instances, the director would have these ideas, and the band, they've got quite a good input in the creative. But Ben Wheatley is obviously, he wanted to make something his own. So the house is really important. We sent a bunch of images over to Ben, and he picked good things about some, bad things about others. We only had 1 day shoot, so it was important that we filmed in one location. Okay, so he liked certain parts of certain different houses, but we couldn't film in the house and then move to the other house and move to another house. We just didn't have time. 10-hour shoot, 1 day. Ben doesn't mess around. He's very pragmatic, and he can get tired and wants to go home. So yeah, we just shot in one house, and that's something to think when you are doing these music videos. If you can keep it contained and then make the containment work for you in a diverse way. So in this, what made it diverse was the use of lighting, the use of special effects, having 2 Jason in the shot, a lot of toys which are very, if anyone, you lot might not recognize the toys, but these toys are very specific to, like, 80s kids, which is really important to Ben. We had to source that. He gave us certain brands and things that we could source, and we sourced them. But yeah, this one, it's fortunate if you have someone like Ben Wheatley directing something, because if you ask someone to do something, you say, yeah, but it's for a Ben Wheatley film, they're more inclined to do it. So there is an advantage of having a big director involved. The other productions that I'm going to talk about don't have big directors involved, and that's where things change.
So in terms of the budget that you got for this, who decided how much you got, or where did you get the money from? Because I think that's a question that a lot of people wonder in their early stages of their career. Where do you get the money?
Yeah, and it feels like when you first come out of Confetti, which you will in a few years, it feels like where there's no access to money, or if there is, you have to go for a funding application, and that can be daunting. I would always say do the funding application, because even if you don't get it, you learn from, like, actually doing the application. You learn a lot from that. But this one was funded by Rook Films, like I mentioned earlier. Andy Stark, who I would recommend looking up. If you like British horror, comedy, just independent British cinema, the films he produces are very good. A lot of them are for Ben Wheatley. So they funded it. Rook Films funded it, and he is the main producer, and then I'm the local producer on this one. He says this is how much budget you have to work with. Often they give you a lower amount than what they actually can spend. So when you do ultimately go over the budget, they have that contingency plan. That was always the case. So yeah, so $7,000, spend this, don't overspend it, and he was quite pragmatic, like very loose. It's like, yeah, just do what you can with this, and then take whatever money is left over for yourselves.
So that was leading me on to my, a question that I had later on, but how tightly sort of controlled these budgets are, how much wiggle room, if at all, on a project like this, did you have with money?
Yeah, so on this one, they were quite free about it, just because, Ben Wheatley wasn't taking a fee and the producer wasn't taking a fee. They were doing it because, they'd minted anyway. That Ben Wheatley's, I'm pretty sure he's got a net worth of at least $5 million. And Andy Rourke would be a millionaire as well. So they don't need to take money on this production. They're just doing it because they like the band. They came up to Nottingham to, do the video. We didn't have to travel down to them. They wanted to come here. And yeah, so this one was quite freeing. The others, which I'm going to talk to in a minute, weren't as freeing, and I had way more power on them in terms of finances.
So sort of the last question to sort of leave Sleaford Mods, and then as we move on, is so how did you get the job really? So was it through networking, or was it some other way, or?
Yeah, so networking, and I hate networking. I hate it so much. It's like it almost feels like you go to places and you lie about stuff to try and impress people, and it feels a bit fake, and it can be odd. However, I would recommend doing it in person. Definitely speak to people in person. What I would recommend highly is speak to people who have been around for a while. Broadway cinema, which you all know, has been like a good hub of filmmakers who have been working for like 30 years. And it's like in the 90s and early 2000s, Nottingham was kind of legendary for like producing independent film. Obviously, Shane Meadows leading the way on that, but there's a bunch of other filmmakers. One of them used to be a lecturer here, actually, called Chris Cook. He now runs Mayhem Film Festival. He was my lecturer here 12 years ago, and I kept in touch with him, and through him, I made friends of his. The guy that hooked me up with Sleaford Mods was a guy who's been he's an actor. He's in like Bronson and a bunch of other independent stuff. And he said, "Yeah, Sleaford Mods are looking for a local producer. Are you up for it?" So it was just by chance in that case, but it was because I made friends with him. And people with like years of experience, try and befriend them and try and get their advice from them, because they will offer you like bits of work and stuff.
And if we flick back a few slides, we'll talk a little bit about sort of networking. So is it the Trello one? So it's really important. Obviously, networking, whatever role you want to be, not just producing any sort of role in the industry. It's always about sort of who you can befriend, who you can know, which is really important to be aware of. And talk a little bit about Trello, which is a good place to get contacts. So how does Trello work for those of you that haven't heard it?
So yeah, essentially it's like an organizing tool, which is really useful for me because I struggle with just organization really. Like my brain is a bit frazzled most of the time. So I have to make a conscious effort of like recording things down. Trello basically, every time I meet a contact, I'll go on a Trello board, and if you've used it, you understand. But basically, it lines things up in like columns like this, and you can drag and drop things. Right? It's like Minority Report. That's what I like to do, and that's what I like to think it has, but it's not. But yeah, so I'll make a list of like producers, editors, directors of photography, cam ops, list of all the crew, art department, and the list goes on. And then I'll add every single contact I make onto this board, and I'll keep adding it, adding it. And then I'll basically scale their experience in like a color-coded thing. So if they're students like yourselves, your experience is going to be minimal, but you're there to get experience. So you're willing to work, but your experience might be, at a certain level that means you can only do certain things on set. And that changes, but it's kind of a broad thing. And then if someone's been doing it for 10 years, they're high experience. Someone's been doing it 20 years, it's like a different level. If someone's got a kit, I'll mark, okay, this DP is experienced and also has a good amount of equipment. And someone set their alarm for this time. So yeah, and I think it's really useful. I think having a database where all the contacts are recorded and you can just refer to it whenever you like for a mobile phone or an email is really, really useful. I'd start doing it immediately.
It's sort of like in a practical equivalent. It's like having a Rolodex on your desk in an office, isn't it? In a way.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just you can get it on your phone, you can get it on your desktop. It's always there and it's always changing. Like right now, I've got like a big extensive list on there. So if I'm booking jobs, I work for a video production company, corporate video production company, and I'm booking jobs quite often. So I need to see who's available, and I'll start with the best one and then go down a list. The dates don't change when you work with clients. You have to film on certain dates, so you just need to make sure crew are available on them days. And if everyone's freelance, it's always chopping and changing. So you need to book people in as soon as you can.
Yeah, really, really important. So yeah, just to touch on Trello a little bit more, would you recommend these guys getting it at this stage in their career and just sort of learning it, or?
Definitely, yeah. Just get on it. If you don't like it, then use another way of recording. But it's basically just recording information, recording like everyone you meet's contacts. So, like if you bump into someone who's a filmmaker and they're looking for work, just put their name in it. It doesn't matter if you aren't sure about them yet. You can even put that. You can put their name and contacts and emails in this database, and then you can say, yeah, I'm not sure about them, but could try them or stuff like this. So gather contacts now, because by the time, if you do want to become a freelance filmmaker and you got loads of contacts already, you're going to have a head start.
Yeah, and speaking of head start, if we go to the sort of Beck 2 slide, the importance of knowing what production you're on and knowing how much you should be paid as well is also something that you guys should get to know about now. So with Beck 2, could you do a little intro to that and just the importance of it as well?
Yeah. So we've all heard in the news like the sort of union strikes and things like this, and it's important actually to have unions and having people that are going to make sure that you're getting paid enough and make sure that you're not being taken advantage of. Beck 2 is a union, and so is APA. Basically, they have rates that at a minimal amount that you will get it on a set. To be honest, like I never get a production with Beck 2 rate, like, or APA rates. Basically, I sort of set my own rate and I stick to it as best I can, and then I'll do stuff for free if I think it's good, or I'll do stuff for less, or I'll demand more if it's bad and you reckon you can get payday. But but Beck 2 just have minimal rates for every single crew member. You can look up the rates online. Mainly it's London, but they also do, Midlands does do Beck 2. APA is more. APA is like if you're big time, you demand like high rates, and that's maybe for like TV adverts. Ben Wheatley, yeah. Ben Wheatley would get paid like big money, and he can just dictate at this point. He's doing the Meg 2 now, so he's gonna get a payday for that. But so it's important to understand the union rates, but also to understand like the local rate. Right now in Nottingham, I'm paying camera ops, depending on their experience and kit. Say if you have a Blackmagic 6K and a 3-point light setup, you can do some talking head work, and I will pay between 150 to 250 a day for that. But say if you have a production camera like a Blackmagic Curse is like one that's often used, but then anything like an Arri or even a Red, like that's at least 550 a day. Realistically, if they have kit as well. So understand where you are and make sure you're not getting underpaid for stuff. Initially, you will be underpaid for stuff, but you can work your way up.
Yeah. So I heard a really good quote once, and it's like there's a difference between getting experience and getting exploited. So obviously, ultimately, you'll have to work for free at this, being a student and getting into the industry. But when you are, working and you have your own kit, it is really important that you look at your Back 2 rates and you get what you are deserved. But
yeah, definitely. And you can kind of blag it a little bit. Like, say if you're like you've done enough and you feel like, right, I actually need to start getting paid, just ask to be paid, even if maybe you're still sort of developing. That's what I did, and I think you can, as long as you do the best you can and make sure the work is satisfying for the client, then start getting paid as and when you can, particularly if you can get equipment. Like, but most people can't. Like, if you don't have money to buy equipment, like I didn't, you're gonna find it harder.
Should we move on to the budgets? So we're going to pass around some budgets. We're going to look at 4 different projects that Derry's produced and one that he's directed. And we've got hard copies of the budgets that we're going to pass around so you can just have a look. But we will play the first budget that we're going to look at. So this is a Matt Maltese music video, another music video, and it's called You Deserve an Oscar. So we'll give it a watch.
Yeah, so we will talk over this one as it plays in the background. So yeah, Matt Maltese. Does anyone know Matt Maltese? Yeah, some people. Yeah, he has performed here. Independent, singer, has been. He does like American tours and European tours. He's doing really well. And this was a video that was shot on film actually, on 30mm, 16mm, sorry. Which had its own issues, but was part of what the director wanted.
Is that budgetary sort of issues that you had that costing a lot of film? Yeah,
it does. Film is definitely more expensive than digital. Some people disagree, but from my experiences, it definitely is, and it can cause like production issues. But I love it. There's no doubt about it. If you can afford it,
it's got just a unbeatable look, hasn't it? Film. When you watch films or music videos, even, it's just got that look. You can tell it's been shot on film. It gives it a really sort of nice look, doesn't it? But
definitely.
Like I say, the money that you have to, spend on it can be a lot at times, can't it?
Yeah, unless you are like skilled enough to develop it yourself. But you will have to go to a development house, and you will have to buy the film reels. And also each film reel, you may notice, each film reel only runs up to 10 minutes max. So you only have 10 minutes of footage, and you have to get another reel. And a reel of 16mm film from Kodak is about 112 quid. So 10 minutes for 112 quid is basically what you're paying for. All of this, so I was in charge of budget and the production, organising all of the props, the location. The location was really great on this because we had a fairground for the whole day to ourselves, which was makes the video work really. And we designed some of the art department like a minute ago. He had his head in one of those paintings. I don't know what they call it, but you know what I mean.
Headless paintings.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And he was wearing the exact same outfit that he is wearing. So art department designed that. This is mad. That's me with the camera strapped to the side of these. The things that do this at fairgrounds. I think they're called zero gravity. They spin round really fast. We had to film on that about 6 takes, and at the end of it, it felt like my brain was jammed at the back of my head because it was just constantly going round and round. And Matt was sick as well.
But I was going to say, without a camera strapped to me, I go on there once and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I've struggled to walk, but 6 times, wow.
Yeah, and look, you can see he's sick. He's going to be sick. But the scary thing about that was the camera is a Arte Xterra film camera, which is worth, with the lenses, it's worth about 60 grand. So it was important that we got the correct insurance to cover that. We strapped the camera with several rigs around the ride, make sure it's safe, and then held it as well to make sure that there was no way it could come off and hit someone or what have you. And that's what you have to take responsibility for if you are a producer. So the budget, which some of you will see and then some of you will pass on, I think it's important to understand the cost of things, and this will chop and change. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give some like detailed copies of these budgets. This is just a top sheet, which essentially gives like a rounded up figure of what the costs are for each department that was used on this film. But yeah, I'll send you an in-depth version of this, and it's like 7 pages long, and it says like each rate for each person's fee. On this production, there's no union involved on this. This basically is most people, like me, like the director, like the band, are doing it for free because the budget's too small. So the budget mainly covers equipment and crew costs. Okay, so if you can see the budget in front of you, we've got production costs at 500, and so production is basically classed as anyone who's involved in the management of the shoot. That would be me. That would be a production coordinator, a line producer in some instances. For this, it was just a case of me and then my assistant, and the 500 quid covered my assistant in this case, and then just travel costs, recce costs. So camera, because the DP had some of his own equipment, but he needed to hire in some extra stuff. We're doing the when Matt's in the waltzer going round, those waltzers are quite dark, aren't they? And they're reliant on like neon lights flashing and things like this. So when you're filming with film, you got to be aware of like the exposure. So we had to rig our own lights there, which means we'd have to get certain tube lights to fit on to rig on. So with each video, as a producer, you speak to the director and you talk about what look they're going for, how they're going to shoot it, and then also what equipment they're going to need specifically to make them get what they need, and then you immediately book that equipment and you investigate how much it's going to cost, and then you try and haggle it down. So on this, pretty much the £1,290 in the camera section is pretty much all on equipment. So that's not, and then we paid an assistant camera up £200 for the day. The DP did it for free, and then the rest was just on equipment. So that's about £1,000 cost for equipment for this film, and that is mainly lighting, some lens additions, and yeah, you have a question? Yeah. 65 quid for costume or hair and makeup. Is that your costume as well? Yeah, that's costume, yeah. So No, yeah. No, you're right, yeah. So 65 quid is for hair and makeup and 80 quid for costume. So that was basically the costume as a clown outfit. And the hair and makeup is doing the clown's makeup. So we had to pay a makeup artist for the day.
The clown, is it or his dad, the clown? He got his dad on set and put makeup on it, didn't he? I remember him talking to me about that.
Yeah, and so that 65 quid is way below what a hair and makeup artist would get for a day normally, right? But we need them to be there to just top up the clown makeup and make sure it's consistent throughout the video. So you're paying for a person for that money rather than the actual, hair and makeup itself, if that makes sense. So this is why I'm going to give you the access to the full budget, because you can see what covers like props, what covers like items and materials, and what covers the actual fee for people. So location, right? This is a great location, and I'm going to give you a bad example of a location shortly. when you're doing your music videos, I think the secret, this and the Sleaford Mods video, the Sleaford Mods video's got 3 million views now. This one's on about 120,000 and gradually rising. Keep it contained, I would suggest. Keep your music video contained. Use, once you've got it contained, take advantage of lighting, take advantage of like props. We had a fairground, so we filmed on one fairground for the whole day. We had access to all the rides. The guy that ran the fairground, he was a bit of a scallywag, but he just basically like goes, yeah, do it. Just give me $1,000. So we paid £1,000 for the fare for the day. And then him and his mates just worked the machines as and when we needed them. And that allowed us to take advantage of several different areas within the fairground, outside on a hot day. It was really hot. It was 36 degrees. The clouds aren't changing. It's a blue sky. So we had like so much freedom to work with within this contained space. We didn't have to have any unit moves. Unit moves are the thing that screws you over if you're doing day shoots, which most of the time a music video will be 1 or 2 days shoot, particularly on this budget, yeah.
So just on that sort of point about, going around the fair and shooting where you want, did you stick to a shot list or a storyboard strictly, or was it a bit more free? Did you just sort of like decide on the day a lot of the stuff?
Yeah, so that's the difference with some directors. Like Ben Wheatley, when he turned up with notes written down, handwritten down notes, which he wants certain shots to certain lyrics. The lyrics for Sleaford Mods are really important. Some of you that have listened to them, you would know this. So the visuals need to coincide with them. Arya, the director for this, Arya Sharak Shahi, he doesn't really work on that sort of way. Like, he's all about visuals. And also, he used to be a photographer. He's not really like a narrative director. He's just a visual director. So he did do an animatic and if you don't know what an animatic is, it's basically like designing, it's like a storyboard, but like seeing it lined up with the music. So you put a storyboard to music in an edit, just so everyone can have an understanding of the pacing of the video. But that was thrown out the window quite quickly for this. So he did have an idea of where he wanted to shoot, what he wanted to do. And because the art design did some designs, there were things that needed to be there, like the beat the bar thing that was built, the put your face in a hole item that was built specifically for the video. And then he wanted to go on a waltzer, and he wanted to do like some sniper stuff. The Eliminator was a late addition to it, which stressed me out because he was like, yeah, we've got to go on the Eliminator. We'll just tie ourselves to the side. And I was thinking, it was 36 degrees. You all had like probably heat stroke.
And you're in charge of health and safety as the producer as well.
I know. So I did feel like this is definitely pushing it. Turned out okay, but it was a touch and go for a bit. But I wouldn't recommend taking that risk unless you have the right insurance. So just really quickly about the plan. I think when you are contained in a space like that, you have a bit more free time, so you can improvise and you can add things to the shot list. If you're not contained, you won't be able to do that.
Yeah, so it kind of just depends on the production and your location, I guess, and how tightly you do plan it. But it's interesting, with all the freedom that you had in the fairground, and there's still loads and loads of planning that you had beforehand, like making stuff, the thing that Aria made. So yeah, planning's always important, especially for a producer. Yeah.
Big time. I think like you're all doing your music videos and you might have an idea. I think it's really important that you write that idea down on paper. Think about how the idea is going to work for a 3-minute song. And sometimes ideas can only cover the first minute and then you're repeating imagery for the last 2 minutes. That happens a lot. So think about how you can make sure that you've got enough to cover the full 3 minutes without making it feel repetitive.
Yeah, really good advice, man. It's wicked. Just one last thing on this video in particular, on the budget sheet. There's an insurance cost. So obviously insurance, as we know throughout everything, is really important. But sort of what does that cover, insurance, and why do you need it on a set like this?
Yeah, so there's various different types of insurance, which I can't really eloquently put straightforward, like in brief to you all now. I recommend you go and do your own research. But basically, the insurance for this is we have public liability insurance through the production company I work for, which is Simply Thrilled. And within that, that covers a number of things, which include, like, in this particular insurance, it includes if anyone gets hurt on set, and also any sort of, if shoot dates need to be rearranged and the extra cost that's going to cost. Then there's equipment insurance. So this £240 is just for equipment insurance. So when you hire from like equipment houses like Media Dog, which is a relatively cheap local one, well, it's based in Birmingham and Manchester, but you hire from them, they'll give you how much the equipment's worth, and you need to insure up to that amount, just in case all of it gets broken, stolen, or, you know, like it's in a van and that van goes in a ditch or whatever. You need to insure yourself for that amount of money. So the equipment for this is expensive, because we have a Art and Xterra camera, some expensive lenses, and I think we insured for this up to, I think it was £200,000. Which most, if you go through Performance Insurance, which is a good website for equipment kit, for film kit, like most of the time they will give you an initial insurance up to £200,000, and then you pay a premium for anything on top of that. So, you know, for the first couple of years, you might not have to pay this amount of money, but if you are using any equipment which is particularly expensive, and I think anything above, you know, £1,000 is expensive, get insured on it. Yeah, so that's what this covered. There's a couple of others, like, that varies with the shoot. It varies on, you know, I did a shoot not too long ago, another music video for Jar Digger, who is a local artist, who some of you might know. We got a couple of £1,000 to do a video, and we got a Arri Alexa and some really, really good vintage lenses. And the cost to cover, like, the equipment costs and the loss of hire costs came to like £350,000. So insurance came to like £1,300 just to insure this equipment. So, but it's important to research this in your own time. Get ahead of it whilst you can.
Yeah, nice one, man. Really important. So, should we move on to the next Aria clip? So this is same director, bigger budget, so 17,732. So we'll give it a watch, and then we might talk over it as it goes on as well.
Yeah, so this one, I hate watching this video, I'm not going to lie. You won't have the same experience as me, but yeah, we'll watch it for a bit and then I'll talk about it.
I was walking dead slung, hung up 43rd Boulevard chains. I was
That's something else I want to say.
Special and all.
YouTube just never stops, is it? Yeah, so if we think comparatively, like, this is shot across the whole of Grimsby compared to the Matt Maltese video, which was all shot on a fairground. So we got a bunch of locations here, and two trained dancers from London who were paid quite a lot of money to choreograph a dance sequence. This video is on APA rates for crew. So like I said earlier, they're really good rates, and they're high rates for like a Midlands production, really. So this cost 17,500, I think. And I don't think it has anywhere near as much to it as the Matt Maltese video. and we've had to try and compensate a little bit, I think, in the production. So sometimes ambitious ideas can actually be detrimental to the video, particularly if they've got a wide spread across, a number of places. The initial budget for this was meant to be 15, and it went over by 2,500. So I was in charge of all the budgeting, so I take a bit of responsibility for that. I mean, I had to take all the responsibility for it. But I think there's a lot of things I learned from this, which I haven't allowed to happen again. This was also shot on film as well, which took a huge amount of the budget because we had to buy in extra reels because they were overshooting. Things like that can just keep making the budget get more like flabby and inflated.
Yeah, I was going to say this with all the location that's included, all the footage itself. It's 1 12-hour day. It seems like it was that one of the issues, sort of like logistically, it just took a lot of time, and you only had 1 day to shoot. Yeah,
so legally you can't shoot 12 hours is the maximum you could shoot, really, particularly on APA rates. This wasn't 12 hours, it was more than that. But the crew all eventually agreed to continue and shoot, which shouldn't be done, really, but in some instances it happens. All in Grimsby, which in itself costs a lot of money because we had to transport equipment all the way over to Grimsby, pay for hotels for some people, only the good ones though, not the bad ones. They make their own way, and then get all the equipment back at the end of shoot and make sure that it's safe. So you have to pay for transport by a licensed. So basically, you hire a van which is licensed to transport really expensive equipment to and from location, which basically means that the driver is trusted, and also the safety locks on the van meet your insurance requirements. It's all boring stuff, very important though. And then you have to pay for places to lock up equipment, which meets your insurance requirements.
Were you in charge of all that then as the producer on this? Yeah,
all of that.
Your job.
Yeah, so every sort of everything that could go wrong with a production, the producer has to make sure that they insure or cover or are aware of things that could go badly, and any costs that could be incurred for various different reasons. The producer has to just make sure they're on top of everything. That one was a big responsibility because we shot it in the heart of COVID lockdown. I actually had COVID whilst we shot it. I had to produce it from home. So 2 days before the shoot, got a COVID positive test. So basically everything on the day of the shoot, I was on the phone constantly, just organising those logistics. But yeah, so if you look at the budget, we've got the budget in front of us here. So if you compare this to the last one, already we can see some extra costs that are incurred here. So for this one, we're paying the cast, the dancers, they were paid £350 per day. They just shot 1 day on this, but they were also paid, down here we got dance choreography. So the dancers and the dance choreographer were paid for an extra day to design the choreography. In this instance, I don't know if any of you noticed when you're watching it, it's a repeat. The choreography is a repeat of the same dance over and over again. So they didn't have enough time to design choreography for a 2 to 3 minute video. So we had to repeat the same choreography in different locations. So already you're fighting a losing battle because you're seeking, like, where can we put the same choreography with a different backdrop? So ideally, they'd have had a 2 to 3 minute piece, which could continue throughout. But that wasn't what happened because they ran out of time. The equipment on here, if we look at this, we've got camera and lighting. Camera, £4,260. Lighting, £2,000. So the equipment cost for this £6,200 or £6,300 for lighting and camera, and that's more than the whole of the budget of the Matt Maltese video, and pretty much almost the whole of the budget of the Steve for Mods video.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that a little bit, because some people, might think that a bigger budget means bigger success or bigger freedom, but from what you've been saying there, it's not always true. Is that
Definitely
right?
not. Definitely not. I would say from my experience now, like working within a smaller budget in a more confined situation, you can go much further. Unless you got so obviously all of these budgets that I'm going to talk through today are like relatively low, but they're good for the situation I'm in at the moment, and for budgets within Midlands generally. In London, this wouldn't go anywhere near as far. So essentially, like, the reason this budget got bloated is because the director wanted a big, wide scale, loads of different places within Grimsby. We had to pay for different locations. We had to get different licensing, filming on the beach. They wanted extra equipment because they needed certain lights that would generate, like they needed a generator so they could use the lights outside. We needed more film reel because we were shooting in so many different areas and shooting more footage. So everything just multiplied. I mean, it's a nightmare. I'm thinking about it now. I'm actually getting like PTSD from the idea of it. But I think it's important to see, for you all to see this, that there's a lot of moments where you do something and you fail. But what I did is I wrote down all of the the failures of the project, and I write it in a book where I've got like success and failures of each project, and I write down a list, and I'm really honest with it, because then on the next production, okay, that happened last time. I'm going to be more aware of that, and actually I'm not going to allow that to happen this time, and that keeps on developing.
And I'm going to be the teacher in the room. That is exactly why we ask you to evaluate as part of your assignments. So just hearing it from Derry is the exact reason we do it. You write down what went wrong, you write down what went right as well, and then you can apply it into your next project. It's so important, and hearing it from you is obviously clarifies that as well.
It's the most important thing to continuously develop what you're good and bad at, and then be aware of that. It's the same as like gathering contact. Gathering contacts is the same as gathering successes and failures, because it's so valuable. If you keep gathering that stuff, in a few years' time, you're going to have a wealth of knowledge because you are gathering it. Someone had their hand up there. Yeah, of course. So this is I wish I do have the storyboard, which would be good to show. I might get it up a bit later. So a storyboard artist in London designed all of the edit, which most of it was, I'd say maybe 60% of it was stuck to. And it was quite a specific, detailed storyboard. It went through the person that booked the storyboard. They booked it in London, so the price was a lot. It was £900, and it was a day and a half's work for one storyboard artist. And they did refer to the storyboard occasionally, but actually in this instance, I wouldn't say it was fundamental to the production. Some instances it certainly is. I think if you can, particularly if you're working with a music video, if you could storyboard shots to know how long they're going to each work within the song, that could be really helpful. You can even write the lyrics next to the shot. It could be like, these are the lyrics for this bit. It goes from time code 0001 to 0020, something like that. That's really useful. If anyone does storyboard in this room, it's quite a good skill to have. Like, if you could develop that skill, you can get some nice work, particularly in narrative stuff. So music videos, sometimes it's fundamental, sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, just to touch on it, is a good question from Noah at the back. So that £900 that was spent on the storyboard, do you often look back at the end of projects and think maybe that could have gone somewhere else? If you say it wasn't fundamental, do you kick yourself or?
Big time. So that's why I make the notes of like the successes and failures. So there's loads of bits in here. There could have, like loads of the budget could have been reallocated elsewhere. So like, for instance, like we've got things. The equipment costs £6,000. That covers like the DP's fee, the gaffer's fee, and also the first AC's fee, and then the cost of equipment. So it's like. It is also the crew's fee as well as the cost of the equipment, which most crew on the Matt Maltese weren't getting paid APA rates. Like, well, no one was getting paid APA rates, but most crew were working on a lower budget. So the DP for this was getting paid £1,300. So that is, it's a really amazing fee to have for a day and a day's work and then a day's prep. It's amazing. Imagine getting £1,300 for like two days' work. They obviously have to pay for their own insurance on some equipment, and then I cover the other insurance. And also because they have their own equipment, they're also technically hiring out their equipment as well. So that allows them to boost up the numbers. But if I had a choice, I'd say like, nah, maybe do it for like £800 and get over yourself. But no, there's always like looking at this, and when you do look at the budgets in more depth, you'll see you yourself will see. Oh yeah, he could have definitely done a better job there. He could have reallocated this. We got like travel, £1,000, £1,000 for travel for a day's shoot. That is just way too much, and that's my fault. We're paying for travel for equipment and for everyone some people coming up from London, Manchester to shoot a video in Grimsby. A lot of it's to do with the time during lockdown, so we had to get certain people who could film, but that's way too much for a day's shoot. That should be £300 tops really. Yeah. And then post-picture, 2,200 for post-picture. A lot of that's to do with, like I said earlier, like we had to buy extra film reels because we ran out because the director was overshooting, and that wasn't a cost that was like accounted for before we started production.
Yeah, so I was going to touch on post-production as well, because on the last two budget shoots we've looked at, it's been one of the higher costs. Is that day rates? Is it what goes into post-production? Yeah,
so post-production. So the last two, this one and Matt Maltese, were both shot on film. So the post-production costs include film development, which is expensive. The film development for this, I think it was about £900. On a Sleaford Mods shoot, there was no post-production cost because Ben Wheatley edited it in his car on the way home from Nottingham to Dorset. Pretty much, like he already lined it all up. So it's mad. We finished shooting at 5, exported all the footage. He edited on a laptop on the back seat of the car on a 5-hour journey, and then tweaked it when he got home. But he does that a lot. Like he edits as the day of shooting, which can be useful if you're a good editor and a good director. But otherwise, I'd recommend getting an editor in. Editor day rates vary. For corporate video for the company I work with, Simperfield, editor day rate goes from £250 to £400, depending on if they're grading. Also, they'll bump up the cost, and that's a day rate. For music videos like this APA one, I would normally try and get a buyout, which means one flat rate. So you give the editor, you say, right, you have £800 to do this edit. It might take 3 days, it might take 5, but if you try and get a buyout and then get them to sign up for that's good. That can be cost effective. Otherwise, you pay day rates, which can sometimes keep building and building up.
Yeah, nice one. So we're going to move on to short film breakdowns, but to leave music video producing, what's the one biggest advice if you're going into a music video as a producer? What's the one thing, the crucial thing that you need to have in mind?
I'd say when you do your videos this year, I'd say keep them as contained as you can. If the story warrants, if the theme warrants something that's a bit more ambitious, that's fine as well. Just do all the prep that you can do. I think don't take it lightly when it comes to prep. Think about like all of the things that you can add to make sure the video actually works. Keep studying the lyrics over and over again because they'll give you ideas for visuals. And try and lay out, before you go to shoot, try and lay out how long each shot's going to take and what lyrics it matches and how it works with the music. Understand the beat of the song. So if you're doing a drum and bass track, the pacing of the shots the cuts are going to be a lot quicker, aren't they? So you need to make sure you got enough coverage to cover all of that, because you can't just keep doing jump cuts because it just won't be interesting after a while. So be aware of the beat, be aware of like things like BPM, how many beats per minute, and how that's going to affect your edit. But just do as much prep as you can and try and keep it contained as if it's simplified, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Nice one. So, yeah, we're going to look at some budget breakdowns for short films now. So we've looked at music video, and we're going to talk a little bit about sort of producing short films as well as that. So first one we're going to look at is the Sanctuary short film.
Yeah, so we haven't got a budget for this. I was going to play this, but I think we might not have enough time. What do you think?
Should we just talk about it? Or
Yeah.
Or play it in the background while we talk? Or
Yeah. Let me just put my laptop on charge because it's.
Okay. So this, for context, just while Derry's setting up, is a short film called Sanctuary, and it was funded by Emmanuel House, which is a sanctuary for trauma victims. And it was shot in 4 12-hour days, so a bit of a longer shoot, which we'll talk about how long that must have taken to prep as well. And the director is Luke Radford, which you work with quite often, don't you, Derry?
Basically, if Luke is directing something, I'll now produce it for him, and vice versa as well. He'll produce stuff for me if I'm directing. Okay, we can start playing this short if get it connected. Yeah, that's ready to go with. Yeah, cool. Okay, so yeah, there are some things talked about in this short which can be quite disturbing, but I think it's quite important film because it's based on a real life story of someone that went to Emmanuel House for help.
I used to look at the clouds,
and how Emmanuel House
look at the shapes and
offered
make up
them
stories.
Salvation at the moment.
I used to question why I was
this
here.
was put out
That would
as
give
part
me
of a
sense
funding
peace.
campaign. So when I send the budgets to you, I'll send a link to this so you can watch it in your own time.
I lived with my grandparents
The
from when
budget
I
for this
born up until I
was
8.
around
Then I moved in
6,000,
with my
so
mum and
that's a
dad.
4-day shoot. So if you think Matt Maltese music video 1-day shoot,
My dad didn't
6,000.
believe I was his child.
You
so
think
he
Saint
didn't want me
Kochi 1-day music video shoot, and that's 17,000. This is a 4-day short film shoot for £6,000. So how do you proportion your
treated us like
budget to
slaves.
suit that, to make sure that you're getting the best out of it?
He was violent.
I think this is a really, really good short film. I think
mum turned
we did a
blind
good
eye
job
for some
to make an
reason.
8-minute film on that budget. It helped, as part of the campaign, it helped Emmanuel House raise £100,000. We took 50 grand of that and split. I'm joking now. So they've put that money back into Emmanuel House. So it was a really cool project to work on. Yeah. Should we watch it for a bit? I don't know.
Yeah, just get a few shots in, yeah. Very somber film, isn't it? Yeah.
Over time, it came out that he was abusing my sister. So I tried to confront him.
Seeing that just everything stripped from me, just reminded me so much about myself, where all that horrible.
He didn't deny it. He didn't say it never happened. the trauma would never leave me or my family. It wasn't just the abuse. I felt neglected by everyone around me. I felt like they blamed me because I'm the one who made an issue out of it. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison.
So yeah, I think worth watching all the way through when you do get the opportunity. But the you notice we're using a voiceover
I thought him going to
and
prison would be
music,
the end.
right, to set a tone.
Bring some closure.
From a production point of view, this gave us a great advantage. We didn't have sound on set, which was something that we could cut the costs of because we knew we were doing voiceover. So on one day we had some sound pick up certain parts of the scene, but all of this, the sound that you do here is Foley or voiceover, so it's all done post-production, which helped us on the shoot day as well. We're working on a tight schedule. This is a very ambitious project, different locations, unit shifts and all of that. Not having sound is a really useful thing in that instance, if you can make it work. So for this, because it's a personable story, a narration works because we're getting insight into someone's inner thoughts. It doesn't work in all instances, okay? So if you do choose to do narration, make sure it's for a reason. This was shot on an Arri Alexa, which was hired in, and we have a good connection with Media Dog. So I basically told them about the project, told them what we're trying to do, told them we have a very limited budget, but we want expensive equipment. Can you help us out? And they gave us a 50% discount on everything. Like if you use hire houses often, or if you talk about the project, they are willing to help out as best they can, as long as you have the right insurance. So they did in this case.
And it just spilled out of me.
That's really, really nice of them to do that, yeah, 50%. So 4 12-hour days, quite a few locations. I'm guessing you shot sort of non-linear in a way.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so ideally, I would love to shoot a film completely in order, but that's never the case.
I lost my job.
Unless you are really fortunate, like the guy that did Triangles of Sadness, that film, he shot all of it in order. But he's won a Palme d'Or at Cannes, so he could do whatever he wants.
Wicked film, that.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Best Picture Oscar, I think, nomination.
Yeah, it is,
really good.
And it won Palme d'Or at Cannes. So, but most of the time you have to shoot like this location, right? That pops up throughout the film several times. We shot all of those scenes in that location in one, half day. Shoot all of the bits that happen in a location at that same point. So 4 days, I did the schedule, I did the all of the planning, got the location sorted, got the art department on board that needed to design certain places. Like I said with the Sleaford Mods thing, all of the houses in this are vacant houses, which we have then filled with our furniture and props. The best thing, if you get a location which is already designed to work for what your director wants, that's amazing. This is one of them. This is a calf on the top of Victoria Centre, and it's got nice natural lighting coming through the window, so we didn't really need to light it at all. Like she's obviously backlit, it's quite nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice sort of juxtaposition between the characters, the warm light behind the lady.
Yeah.
Really nice. So did you bring any lights to set here, or is it just all natural?
For the calf, none. This boxing gym, there's a light that we've rigged up coming through the window, which is a daylight 2.5K HMI, which is quite an expensive Arri light, but it represents daylight quite accurately. If you have a low budget and you can shoot outside, take advantage of that. Try not to... Well, hopefully you get a day like this where it's either overcast or blue. So the lighting stays the same pretty much the whole day. If you get a cloudy day, then you're just going to have to figure something out.
This is a good start.
But yeah, like, you know, so this allows us to shorten a schedule if we shoot outside and rely on sunlight. It saves the lighting setup time, and also we're not recording sound as well. So
Manual House then, how did they sort of deliver the budget for this? I think you touched on it earlier.
yeah, so basically, so Manual House had a private investor basically who wanted to put money into creating like short films or narrative content, which then brings in more money, which kind of sounds quite funny, doesn't it? It's like putting in money to bring more money in. It worked in this case, and we're really happy for it. So they contacted Luke Radford, who he did a documentary for the BBC called Soul Boy. It went out on Our Lives. Really good half-an-hour documentary. I'd highly recommend like finding it on YouTube or Vimeo, and they really liked it. So they wanted to do two narrative shorts and then one documentary. This was one of the narrative shorts. There's another one called Lone, and then the documentary is being made now. And yeah, the idea was to take account of someone's story. This man spoke to like us, told us all the details of his story, told us why he's in the situation he's in. We wanted to recreate that to show, you know, if people see that they need to seek help and they need to, like if they're going for a very hard time and they see a film which tells a story which is similar to theirs, and actually in this film, he goes to a Manual House who offer refuge and they offer like help, counseling. They help him find a place to live. They sometimes, when people are homeless, they will find homes for homeless, or they'll feed people who are homeless and need food. Manual House is a place down at the bottom of Hockley, which some of you will probably know. Great place. And so, yeah, so they funded this. And most of the time when you get funding for films, to start off with, a lot of it would be sort of based around like charitable causes. There's a lot of money for charitable causes, really, in Nottingham. I think Nottingham is one of the poorest cities in the UK now. So they are seeking to like get funding for things, and sometimes documentary narrative can be really helpful.
Yeah, nice point there, yeah. So from this project must be really rewarding from sort of planning it and then seeing the outcome of it, and obviously going towards a brilliant cause like Manual House. Does that give you like, you know, huge satisfaction when you see it complete?
Yeah, what's really good about this is like there is that, but then also it's a genuinely good film. Like I think like sometimes when you are making something that has an agenda, you can lose like dramatization and you can lose engagement with the audience. They gave us an opportunity to do something in a poetic way, which was really great, and the story was really good. I think from a filmmaking perspective, it's all about story, isn't it? It's all about like getting people to sit down and watch a film and actually, you know, feel the value and feel the thrills or feel like engaged with it. But yeah, it turns out it was also for a good cause, which is a plus. But you know, like we made it from a film perspective, really, first and foremost, and then after the fact, like people were, you know, it screened at Savoy, people loved it, and that was cool.
It's like the ultimate win-win then, and as a filmmaker, yeah. So it's all for a good cause, and you actually enjoyed it because it's a short film. Wicked, man. So do you want to move on to Harlow?
Yeah, so I think
got the sheet for that.
I might go to Lucy's story just to talk about corporate briefly.
Yeah, that sounds good, man.
So there is another, just briefly, I'll talk about Hollow and then move. So another short film, just done with Luke. This is still, well, it's just finished actually, and we just sent it off to festivals. Festival prices is something that I'm sure a lot of you are interested in. And I would happy to go into that at another time if possible. But at the moment we don't have time. But the So we've submitted it to every film festival we can included, and Aesthetica, La Corma, or wherever it's called, Berlin, everything, and it costs about £800 to submit to all of these festivals, which is quite a weighty cost. We had it in the budget, so that film, look out for that, and hopefully I'll get to tell you about it at a future point. This is a corporate film, so I think it's interesting to talk briefly about corporate film as well, because music video, short film, corporate film is something you're all doing, right? That's still the course, isn't it? Yeah. And I think a lot of corporate films are pants, in all honesty. They're talking heads, and they aren't the most fun, and they're for a client that doesn't really know what they want, but often thinks they just need like someone talking to a camera, like spilling out, regurgitating information which meets their ethos or whatever. That is a lot of what the work I do, where I get paid well. Honestly, it's like the stuff where you actually get paid is the worst things you can make. Like, it's weird. But sometimes you get corporate film that comes around, which is actually interesting, and I think this was one of them. So we will watch this, and then we'll talk about the budget briefly, and then open some questions. Okay.
The spinal unit goal, all that they wanted me to be able to do, to be able to transfer from a wheelchair to a normal chair. I needed to do more than that. I rang my nurse and I just said to her, you've got to get me out of here, because it's just such a slow process, and I needed to be at home with my daughter. I'd already spent 6 months away from my daughter, and I just wanted to be at home with her. When Sally and Lewis came to see me, they asked, what matters to you? Goal number 1, to move from wheelchair to a normal chair. Goal number 2, to pick a piece of paper off the floor out of my wheelchair. Goal number 3 was to stand. Goal number 4, to ride a horse. Goal number 5, to go climbing. Goal number 6, is to walk down the aisle and marry my fiancé. To be able to take my daughter to school on my own and be a mum. I was told when I was in hospital these goals could be achieved, but it was going to be a marathon and it wasn't going to be a sprint.
Action.
My family are amazed at where we've come. We still look back at photos and videos and we just think that we can't believe that we actually live that life now. We all take our legs for granted, really.
That's a lovely film, that, Mum. Wicked.
I think it's effective, and I think so. I produced and directed that one, and the budget. I think some of you will have access to it in front of you. So what's really interesting about corporate video is everyone has to get paid, right? Like correctly. Okay, so it's not like the music videos and the short films that I've just talked about. Unfortunately, there's a lot of compromises that are made on rates of pay. But for a corporate video, you will get a day rate and you will be paid that. And that is what the client will, like, we'll send a budget to the client and they'll just take that budget and they'll have to sort of work with it. So that was a 2-day shoot. If we compare that to Sanctuary, which was a 4-day shoot, that was 2 days. You could probably tell that it was 2 days when you think about it. But I think we got some good legs on like a 2-day shoot. There was a completely stripped down crew on that. It was just me, the DP, and then one runner. So the director of photography, they were on a day rate of £600. I was on my producer's rate, which is $350 for something like this. And then we have a runner on a runner rate of, £150 is a rate that normally we go for a production assistant on this. So it was just me, us three. The DP would be also doing sound for this because it was just an interview. So they'll also be miking up and setting up a shotgun, like there'll be lapel mic, shotgun mic, and camera, and they'll set that all up themselves. So we won't get a sound up on separately. It would just be the DP. You find that's often the case with corporate stuff, unless it's more complicated. If there's more than one person talking at a time, or if there's a group of people talking, you will need a sound operator. But most of the time, the DP has the equipment to do all of it. So, yeah, so a 2-day shoot, and if you see here, like, the rates are more consistently spread across the board, like, and in comparison to some of the others. Camera department. When you hire a DP for a corporate video, pretty much you're hiring them for the equipment they have, and you might not really hire in extra equipment. In this instance, I don't think we hired in any extra equipment, but you might have noticed that we used a split diopter on the lens in some of the hospital scenes to add like a sort of an effect of like, a vision that's skewed, and she's not really seeing the world in its full light. Lucy went through absolute hell, like, for a year. This doesn't really go into the detail of how much, how many problems she had with her body for, like, 2 years, really. The fact that she can walk with crutches and ride a horse is a huge victory for her. And I think when I sat down with her and spent time with her, I realized that. And so I thought, okay, I already knew how the edit was going to go. I edited this as well. So, because I was fully involved in that way, I worked with her on the edit. And I think that's why it works quite well, I think. But yeah, so if you compare this to the others, it's important to understand that there are big differences in, like, crewing up short films, music videos, and corporate video. Yeah, that's it, I think.
Just a question I had on this one is, because you directed and produced it, does it make your role as producer easier when you direct something? Because obviously you cut out the communication, or do you prefer to work individually as a producer?
Yeah, so I think on a production like this, it's possible to do both, and it is good actually. But if it's on something that has more scale, more crew, more locations, then if you are producing and directing, you will also need another person to produce, or at least another 1 or 2 people.
Yeah, could you imagine doing the second music video, the Aria music video, sort of is both? That'd be ridiculous.
It'd be impossible. And the Sanctuary, it would be impossible as well. So like Luke produces and directs his stuff, and I produce it with him. So I'll take charge of production, but he will also contribute because he wants to, and also it's good to have 2 producers anyway. But yeah, the Lucy's story. What was really good actually is like we had to shoot. You know, we were limited at what we could shoot, so we had to just we had limited time in the hospital. We had limited time with Lucy. We had limited time with the horse. So we had to sort of make our shots count in the short time, which can actually be really freeing. If you do the prep, it can be really freeing because you're limited to what you can get anyway. So it's like, just get what you can and move on. So yeah, so that was good. I think the sound could definitely be, like, Jim's probably listening to that thinking, yeah, the sound needs some work. But yeah, some of the sound on that edit, just listening back, could have been spent a bit more time on that, and we ran out of money, really. But yeah, so it just to clarify, it's not funded by the NHS. It's for the NHS, funded by someone else that's basically trying to, like, help the NHS, help bring funding towards the NHS. So it's like a private company which is essentially putting money into a film which would benefit the NHS, because the NHS themselves wouldn't be able to put money into something like this.
Just on that as well, I asked this earlier, but in a different context. How did you get that funding? How did you get the job for that? Did they come to you, or were you seeking out at the time sort of corporate roles?
Yeah, so I work for, like I mentioned earlier, I work for a company called Simply Thrilled, which is a Nottingham-based video production company, and they get contacted by various clients. Last year was really busy. The start of this year hasn't been that busy yet, but hopefully it'll pick up. But so the guy that runs it, I'm basically the sole field producer for Simply Thrilled. There's a couple other people, but any bigger project I'll take charge of, and then some other freelancers will be hired in as and when. This was just one of those projects, and it was a good one. Most of the projects I get through there, that's where I get my money. That's like my day job. Most of the projects that come through there are talking heads, or like, you know, shooting a time lapse of a building being built. Do you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. That's most of the projects. But then occasionally we get stuff. We're actually developing a feature film currently, which has like a nice budget. The script's pants, but the budget's good. And then and like we're hopefully developing the script. So occasionally we get a good one. But if you can get in cahoots with a production company, then it's good, because you will get a good day rate for stuff. You hopefully will get consistent work, which allows you to do things that don't pay very well. And yeah, there are a bunch in Nottingham. Simply Thrilled's one, Skeleton Productions, Dynamite Productions. There are a bunch out there that will be looking for production assistants and runners.
Make note. So I could ask you 1,000 more questions about all of the films that we watched, and about, you know, Simply Thrilled and your work with them. But I did promise questions, and we're looking at the time. I think now would be a good time. There is some more budgets that we haven't looked at, which I'll send you all on email after the talk. In-depth ones as well, that you can see the individual costs to each area. But we're going to throw it out to you. We've been talking. So any questions from anybody? Any burning questions? Some chatter at the back. Do we have a question at the back between you all? Anybody else got any questions? Derry's only going to be here for another 10, 15 minutes.
Does anyone want to be a producer in here?
Put your hand if you like the idea of producing. What was that? No, sorry.
Producer or director, one of which.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Yeah. So others, are you more like director orientated or editors in here?
Put your hand up if you like directing. That's a lot of you. Don't be shy. Put your hand up.
Yep. Cool. Okay. So quite a few directors and editors as well. Yeah, a few editors. So I think directors, you should be basically producers as well. Like you should be aware of all of the logistics as well. Like the guy at the back, he's got the right idea. Producer, director. It's really good to know the logistics of what you're capable of doing as a director. And as a director, you should also understand what you can get for certain budgets and certain situations. So the more you know about the production elements, the better a director you're going to be.
Just on that as well, I think there's a common misconception that a producer's role finishes at the pre-production stage, but from what you've been saying today, I think it's obvious that it should filter through to the end of a production as well. So it's not just pre-production as your role, and then you're done. You sort of hang your coat up. There's stuff you've got to do on set and managing the whole project as well. So hopefully that's filtered through today.
Definitely, because the director shouldn't be on production. The director shouldn't really be in charge of logistic stuff. They should be able to have the freedom to concentrate on creative. They'll have an assistant director to take charge of logistic stuff, and the producer will as well. The assistant director runs like the machinery of the set, but the producer needs to run the schedule of everything to make sure that there's not a burden on the director, because the director can't be thinking of things outside of what's in front of them and the scene that they're meant to direct. It's really important. Also, when it comes to an edit, the director shouldn't be the one chasing up the editor for a rough draft or a fine cut or whatever. That's the producer's job. So the producer manages the schedule. There will be a pre-production schedule, production schedule, and a post-production schedule, which the producer has created. And all of that is to take away the burden of it from the director, because they need to lead all the creative stuff.
Wicked. So last chance. Any questions from anybody? Did we think one at the back row? Go on, Tom. Legend.
I noticed in the Lucy story, there was like the music was quite important. How did that end up working out?
Yeah, so the music for this, we had, unfortunately, there aren't many like composers readily available for projects that was an orchestra piece. It's hard to find that in Nottingham, so we have access to a huge library of stock music. A lot of stock music is pants though. You have to find the right stuff. I always had in my head, because of the nature of the edit, and also, it's a very like broad sort of video which can appeal to a variety of different age groups. I always had in my head the idea of like an escalating violin. That was always going to be in the edit, so I just searched through stock music to find that. That particular site was artlist.io, which I'm sure you've all seen adverts for on YouTube somewhere, like before a video, right? Artlist does have about 10% of it's good, and then 90% of it's like not very good, and it's like plinkety-plinky music, which, you know what I mean, where it's just
like Minecraft and YouTube videos in like 2010,
yeah. So you have to like make sure you get the right like music, but there are other stock music sites available, and there are some music composers in Nottingham that are capable of doing particularly stuff like soundscapes and sort of stuff that doesn't require orchestral instruments. Essentially, you can get from Nottingham musicians.
So we've got time for one more question. Anyone got a question they want to ask? It's a good job I've got a closing question for you. So these guys might be thinking, how do I get to a position that you're in, where you can pick your own work and you do things that you enjoy? So as a closing sort of question, what can these guys do now that will benefit them later?
Yeah, so I'm going to reiterate it again about building contacts and storing them somewhere, which you always have access to and always add to. Literally have a book, a notepad, where you write your successes and failures of your work at Confetti, which you would do evaluations anyway, but keep your own version of that, and take that seriously, and do it for any projects you're working on. A lot of the projects you're going to be working on now, they're going to be zero budget or very low budget, I would imagine, unless you're really fortunate and you have access to money. That's great. Take advantage of that. But when I came out of Confetti, didn't have money and didn't have access to anyone that had money and didn't have equipment. So you got to befriend people who have equipment, and, you know, make as many films or music videos, you know, as you can. Don't show all of them to everyone. I would advise that ideally, like, make a film as often as you can, and then keep it within a tight circle of people, because there's so much stuff. Like, I don't know who did the promotion for this industry week, but they put a terrible short film that I did, which I had to take down. It's so bad. Was it you?
I don't think it was me.
All right.
Sorry if it was, but I don't think it was.
It was really bad, and like, so I had to like go on Vimeo and delete it because I thought some students might watch that and be completely put off by the. Honestly, it's so bad. But so I think keep making videos, show them to your friends, develop what went wrong and what went right with them, and keep practicing in whatever craft you want to do, and constantly make notes on successes and failures, essentially. And then when you get out and try to get into industry, contact video production companies, contact local media outlets, and, you know, speak to people who have been in the industry and actually getting work, and try and get on sets if you can. It is hard, but just try and get on as many sets as you can.
Nice one, man. So we'll wrap it up there. I would like everybody to give a round of applause to our wonderful guest today, Derry. Yeah, thank you so much on behalf of everybody, Derry. It's been really valuable what you've spoken about today. So yeah, just a reminder, if you want to book into any more talks that are outside of your timetable, you can do it on IW23 or Confetti's website. And we have a talk later on today that has got some spaces free with Len Brown about documentary making. So if you want to jump on that, then feel free. It's in your gap. So yeah, but thank you, Derry, once again.
Thank you.
And see you guys later. Thank you very much.
Guys, please can you make sure you pick any of the paperwork up and take it with you, please? We're going to get ready to reset the room for the next talk.